This is a presentation that I've been given for some time, basically sharing my own personal story, which as you go through, you guys will see that my fight for life began at Project Network as well. So I'm going to start off by sharing with you guys. I was the youngest of 5 girls. We were raised by a single mother. My mom took care of us by herself. Between the 5 of us, there were 3 different fathers. Again, between the 5 of us, me being the youngest, my father personally did not accept me as his child. At a very young age, I was already experiencing some really hurtful things, but as a child, you don't really know that. I'll share some of these things that I know affected my life, but a lot of these things I didn't find out until later in life, how it affected me. But at a very young age, not only did my father not accept me as his child, I knew he was my dad. I looked just like all of his other children. And so for me, a young girl, I knew enough to know that I'm supposed to have a father and my father's supposed to love me, but to not even claim me as his child. So I was already had something happening, an emptiness already beginning to build inside of me from the very beginning. With that, being raised by my mother, we were living in the city and we all shared like the same, where we would sleep in the same beds and, didn't really have all the things that we needed. But my mom ended up getting her Section 8. And then we moved out to a place where we had much more room. And me and my sisters now had our own room, not our own rooms, but we had our own beds and we weren't all sharing. So we basically started having more of the things that we needed. Well, with this move, I ended up we were the first African-American family moving in this community. And so that brought about a whole lot of other stuff that I would then experience. For one, I was about in the 1st grade, so I would deal with a lot of, being called names. I was the youngest, and so I internalized all that. My sisters were older. And so when people called them names, the N-word and different stuff, they kind of handled it in a different way. It made me sad. Like, I remember feeling like nobody liked me. I remember that being something, again, adding to that emptiness inside of me, which, I eventually learned that later. But it was hard to be in an environment where people are calling you names, talking about your hair, feeling like you weren't good enough. So that's another thing that I experienced at a very young age. As I talk about, move through this presentation, I'm going to share some of these different things that, again, at the time, I did not know how it would affect me. But the reason why I really want to make sure that I share this with you guys is because I want to make sure that every last one of you are aware and understand that none of us grew up saying that this is what we want to be. None of us grew up saying we want to be on drugs. None of us grew up saying that we want to have some kids that we got to fight to get back. None of us asked for that. That's not what we were looking for. There's things that we experienced as children that added to some of the stuff, the emptiness. I refer to it as the emptiness inside of me because that's how I was able to see it over the years of how it eventually brought me to this place where life felt worthless, useless, not worth living. So I want to make sure that you guys understand why I'm saying that. As a little girl, being in an environment where nobody's accepting her, that hurt me. Even though I didn't know what that meant, it created this emptiness inside of me. So I want to make sure that I share that because my father not accepting me and not being accepted in those environments was hard. Just wanted to share this picture here. Growing up, my mom always made sure we had what we needed. I remember, Christmases, again, feeling like we had what we needed. As we're growing up a little bit, things are starting to change a little bit in the schools. More people are moving to that area, so it's becoming more multicultural. So there's other people moving in the area. So people, we begin to make friends. And I'm sure it was a huge shock, not only for my family, but for the families in that environment as well, us moving to that community. So eventually we all started to make friends and, different stuff like that. But one of the things that I ended up experiencing during that time is I then started to act like the people of the environment that I was in. And so that didn't sit well with my family. So with that, I would be at school. And when I say that, I'm a young girl. We're thinking first grade, second grade, third grade, where you're just trying to have friends and you're trying to fit in. And so the way that they're talking, I'm talking that way. The boys that they like, those are the boys that I'm liking. So back then, I don't know what it was here in the West Coast, but back then we were using Valley Girl talk. It was just, yeah, it was way animated, like really grossed me out. And my family really didn't like that. So what ended up happening is I would be at school, still not being completely accepted, still being called names in that environment. But then I would come home and my sisters would be calling me names too. So now I was little white girl, and now I was this, and now I was that. And so with that, again, feeling just a little bit lost. When really I was just a little girl just trying to be, and it seemed like no matter which way I went, it just wasn't enough. And so eventually I reached an age where I started to get a little bit older, around 11, 12 years old. At this point, I was tired, of just trying to be what I thought other people wanted me to be and just trying to blend in every environment, to where I just decided to start running. Even at a very young age, 11 years old, 12 years old, I started skipping school, and my mom would go to work and I would be hiding underneath the stairs. Once she left for work, I'd come put on the clothes that I wanted to put on. I'd get on the city bus and go to the north side. Now, I started doing that just a little bit here and there, and then eventually I started staying gone longer and longer. Now, even though I'm running to that environment, I'm not actually looking for anything specific. I'm just trying to get away from this uncomfortableness that I'm in. So going in that environment, you got to think, I'm 11, 12 years old in an environment where nobody's going to school. So now I'm putting myself in these environments to, start coming in contact with things I wasn't really looking for. I wasn't looking to start using drugs. I wasn't looking to get in trouble. I really was just trying to escape the environments that I was in. I was trying to get in an environment where I was accepted, and it seemed like I was more accepted in those environments. So with that, during the time that I'm out there, eventually I started staying away from home longer and longer. And, my mom used to come and get me and be like, you better get your butt home. And, I went through all that because she knew that I was headed down a path of destruction. And she made her effort to try to do what she could to get me back home. Well, eventually she was hit with 3 teenage pregnancies in her home all at the same time. And it wasn't even me. It was my 3 sisters. They were all teenagers, and they all, within a 3-month period, told my mom that they were pregnant. And so now she's at home dealing with this, and I'm in the streets, and she can no longer run out there trying to find me. So now I'm just out in the streets, putting myself in a lot of unhealthy environments. And one of the things that I want to share with you, being 13, 14 years old, really young like that, being able to leave and be out there and, be gone for days. Where can a 13, 14-year-old girl go and stay where nobody's saying, where's your parents? I mean, why are you here 3, 4 days? How come, where can she be where nobody's asking those kind of questions? Well, I'm going to tell you where she can be. She can be in environments where people are taking advantage of 13 and 14-year-old girls. I'm not just staying the night at people's house whose parents are just letting me stay there. I'm staying in environments where there's men who are renting these apartments, and I'm not the only young girl there. So with that, I share that part with you guys because a lot of things was happening to me that should not have been happening. And I never looked at it as I was being raped or molested or taken advantage of because nobody made me do what I did. Matter of fact, I felt pretty shitty because I felt like I was putting myself in this position, not really understanding until much later in my life that I was 13 years old. These were grown men. So again, that was another thing adding to this emptiness inside of me. Because that's not what I was looking for out there. I knew that I was out in the streets. I was gone. I knew I needed to sleep there that night. And there was this understanding that if you were going to be there, this is what you were going to partake in. You ask, why would a person stay in a situation like that? Trying to fulfill this emptiness inside of me. This was the price I was willing to pay to get in an environment that felt better, an environment that didn't have rules, an environment where I wasn't being judged. But at that same time, at the end of the night when I was by myself, I didn't feel good about who I was. So wanting to share that, eventually I met a guy out there that was around my same age, and he would be my first boyfriend. Things seemed a little bit better, you know, to be able to meet someone my own age and be in a relationship with, because he took me away from those environments that, you know, I was staying the night and having to do all, you know, those type of things. So with this, when I first met him, a lot of people would tell me, don't even mess with him. You know, they would tell me that he's abusive. They told me that he drinks a lot. He's an alcoholic. You know, for me, in my young age, I didn't really see anything wrong with the fact that he would have a drink right when he woke up. I mean, I just didn't get that, you know. I thought everybody was kind of being, you know, just talking about him. But, you know, today I can look back and be like, whoa. Can we say red flag? But anyways, I ended up in that relationship. And with that, I started staying in his family members' homes, and, you know, they accepted me. And, you know, so it put me further and further into this relationship, because it wasn't long before he started abusing me. You know, and in the beginning, you think a slap here, a slap there, and, you know, you kind of brush it off. And, you know, I remember a time when my kids' father, I remember a time where he would be real mad if guys looked at me or if I was looking at guys. And I remember there was a time where I really thought, boy, he loves me. And I share that because sometimes we can have those distorted thoughts, and we don't really understand, you know, the people on the outside looking in. It just looks like, why are we accepting that? There are some of the things that we could be viewing that is distorted. You know, what do you want to call it? Blinded by love. You know, that alone. And not only that, but all these things that I'm sharing with you, adding to this emptiness inside of me. You know, some of that allowed me to accept some of these things that weren't okay and be able to not see them for what they were. So I just want to share that with you guys, because I know when I dealt with the domestic violence that I dealt with, which got really bad over the years. I mean, I was hospitalized. There would be the times that the police would come and I would never say anything. And then the one time that I did, what I got after I did that assured that I would never call the police again. So I don't want to brush over this domestic violence piece as if it's little. I just know I want to make sure, as I talk to you guys about the struggle, I want to make sure I get to the part where I get to share with you the fight for my life. I want to make sure that I get to the part that assures to you that you don't ever have to go back. That your life can change. You are all in position right now. So I don't want to brush past the domestic violence, but I want to make sure I stay on it enough to make sure that all of us know that when you're stuck in it, the accepting of it is real. But I also have to make sure that we all have an understanding that there's something inside of us that's not well that allows it. As we begin to get our life together and get the healing that we need to address some of that emptiness inside of me, we begin to honestly feel like we don't deserve to be slapped. We don't deserve to be called that. That doesn't happen by the people around us. Those things begin to happen as the healing begins to take place in our lives. And you're all in position right now. You're already in position. So with that, being in that relationship, being out in the community with my kids' father, a lot of bad things happening, the domestic violence. By the age of 18, I was a mother of 4. I didn't even know how to take care of myself. I was lost. I'm not even on drugs yet. You know, not only that, having my kids at such a young age, that was another thing that added shame into my life. You know, to be honest with you, I'll tell you what it looked like. I had a newborn that sat on my chest in a little baby carrier. I had a set of 1-year-old twins in a stroller and a 2-year-old that held on to my pants leg and walked with me like this. I knew I didn't know how to take care of those kids, but I was trying. I was trying. I lived in a one-bedroom apartment. Again, we were really young, so our apartment was the spot where a lot of people would hang out there, and, you know, there'd be a lot of smoking and drinking in the living room. So me and my kids spent a lot of time in our bedroom. You know, eventually, this is the time that I found out that my kids' father was using crack. Again, like I said, I shared a lot of things with you guys already. By this time, I had been in a whole lot of I don't know why I wasn't on drugs yet. To be honest with you, I was in every environment experiencing a lot of different things where I could have been on drugs a long time ago. Now, this was when the crack epidemic was just swooping through communities, and I knew that it was bad. So I think, you know, through all the emptiness that I was experiencing and the things that I was going through, there was still something about me that said, ooh, don't do that. Well, when I found out that my kids' father was using crack, I would love to tell you guys that that's when I put him out and got rid of him. But I didn't. I mean, I don't even remember fighting the feeling of wanting to use it. Once that happened, everything went downhill quick, instantly. Not being able to pay my rent, evictions, spending all the foods, and all those things that come with an addiction hit me hard instantly. I mean, it didn't take no time at all. Before long, DHS services was called. And when they came into the house, it wasn't hard for them to see that they needed to get involved. I mean, you know it when they go and they look in your refrigerator. They just want to see, does she have food there to feed them if she wanted to? Nothing. I mean, how do you cry out for help like that? You're in this situation now. You're already sitting there feeling the way that you're feeling, knowing that you're not taking care of your kids. You now got this addiction. You done spent all the food stamps. There's no food. How do you cry out for help? You know if you go talk to them, they'll take them away. But you know you can't take care of them. So then you get high a little bit more. So before long, just like addictions will do, it continued to do the things that prevented me from taking care of my kids. I needed help. I was not doing what I needed to do. I was not taking care of my kids. So they took my kids away. When they took my kids away, they would say, Melonie, we don't want your kids. We want you to get the help that you need so that you can take care of your kids. Now, in the beginning, you don't hear that. You just feel like it's you against the world, and they just want to take your kids, and all these things are going to destroy. But really, I mean, today looking back, and even some of us who may be still experiencing some of this, really, were we taking care of our kids? Did we need help? But I didn't get that back then. I hated them too. Eventually, I found a different appreciation as I started getting my life. But during that time, someone just coming in and taking the only thing that you're living for. The only thing that keeps you waking up the next day and trying again. So yeah, I was mad about them taking my kids. As I said, they said, Melonie, we don't want to take your kids. We just want you to get your life together. So I would say, okay, what do you want me to do? I would get into these treatment centers. They would be about 6 months long, and I would say, just tell me what to do. I would always complete the treatment centers. After being there for a little bit, they would reunite my kids with me. And when they would reunite my kids with me, I was a good mom. I would feed them. They would take us to the park. You know, when they take you to the park and your kids are playing and you get to watch them, and that's what I wanted. But I couldn't do that on my own. Not with this addiction consuming me. So when I would get in these programs, I'd be committed to graduating. I'm going to do this. I'm not letting go. I'm going to do this. And I did. I would stay in the programs. I would graduate. Let me tell you, this is how my kids looked when I was in the programs. And this is something that happened over and over. This is just not one treatment. This was a few different treatment centers I would go to, and I would complete the programs. I would graduate. But let me tell you where I went wrong. I would get out of these treatment centers because the whole time I was in there, I don't know what my kids' father was doing. I don't even remember trying to find out because I was okay with getting help and being taught and being helped, people showing me how I could be a better mom. I was okay being there. I didn't think much about where my kids' father was. But what would happen is I would get out of the programs, I would get into my own place. DHS services would help me to, get the things that I need. My kids would have what they need. They'd be in daycare. My life would be off to a good start. But I'll tell you where I went wrong. I would get out of treatment and I would have these standards. I would be right here. I know what I need to do to stay clean. I already know I don't need to be around people using. I know I need to stay connected with those trying to do the right thing. If for those of us who have some stuff that needs to be taken care of, I need to stay participating in with counselors and doing the things that I already knew what I needed to do to stay clean. So I would come out there knowing that. And then my kids' father would surface up. And when he would surface up, he hasn't really been doing much. So instead of placing myself right here, now again, a lot of people on the outside could look in and say, don't do it. He don't love you. You don't love him. But for a young girl who has all these kids, there is this little thought that maybe he can get himself together. Maybe we could be a family. Maybe if we both do this together, just all those thoughts. And I'm sharing that because from the outside looking in, it looks real. I mean, from the outside looking in, other people can see the decisions we're making and how it can hurt us. But for us, it feels real. I'm not going to let myself fall back. I done did all this hard work. Let me just see if he's serious. He might do it. Now, if any of us are in a position where we think that this could work, because I already know there's some of us that really want to see, really want to try. And if that's your story, place yourself right here and don't budge. If there's someone in your life saying, I'm going to support you, I'm going to make all the right decisions, then let them work their way to where you are. When you get yourself to a position where you are healing. It's hard to remain there though. So you got to place yourself in a place that you're not willing to let go of. If for some reason they can't work to where you are, then you got to go. That's where I kept going wrong. Instead of me staying placed there, my kids' father will start doing some of these good things. And then I kind of start moving away from okay, well, you can bring beer in the house. Well, I don't want them people in our house. Okay, he can stay tonight. Oh my gosh, you spent what? Well, then how are we going to pay the rent? Okay, I'm going to figure out how to pay it. Before you know it, the two of us back up in smoke again, kids taken away, same thing happening all over again. I did that several times before I finally reached a place where I was really ready to try to get my life together. So with that, I finally made a decision that I was ready to do something different. Several years had went by. My kids had been in and out of services, going back into treatment, the abuse, all of that. I'm finally tired. I need to do something different. My mom had moved here to Oregon some years before. She had started communicating with me, telling me, Melonie, you need to leave there before you lose your kids forever or before that man kills you. And it just came at a time where I was ready. And that's how I ended up here in Portland, Oregon. I just got away. And for a long time, I wanted to do that, but I was terrified of my kids' father. He was scary. Especially under the influence, because you really don't know how bad you can really get hurt, and it's scary. But I knew I had to do something different. So I came here to Oregon with the help of DHS services because my kids were still involved with DHS services. And when I got here, they were still involved. They did whatever they do to make sure you're not getting away with, So DHS services was involved here. And I'm thinking my life is going to be great now, right? Because I done left the problem behind. I'm thinking, okay, without my kids' father, I probably can really do this time. But there was a reality check in that. Because you remember that little girl whose father didn't accept her? Remember that little girl that was called all those names? Taken advantage of by those people? Well, she's still there. that emptiness is still there. So no, you don't just leave an environment and think that your life is going to be great. There's some stuff that needs to be addressed. But I thought my life would be much better. I went to treatment, Alpha House out there. I stayed clean for a good amount of time. Things were going well. Still hadn't dealt with all that stuff that was inside of me. And eventually I relapsed. With this relapse, instantly my kids were taken away. Now my kids are older now. They're asking questions. So when they took my kids away this time, there was nobody else to blame. Where most people think this is where a person might want to do what they need to do and just get back on track. Because I've been to treatment before. I know what to do. This is where you think, oh my goodness, you need to get it right. But I hated me for the decision that I made. There is absolutely nobody, and my kids are older. How did I let this happen again? They were finally in a place where they were in school. I had brought them to this other state. We lived in a really nice apartment, Richmond Place. I don't know if anybody knows a Richmond Place on Division. I was one of the first people to move into that apartment, the clean and sober housing on 42nd and Division. We had the apartment on the end that had the windows that overlooked downtown. It was beautiful. Anyway. I messed all that up. So when I relapsed this time, I really ran hard. It seemed like it would be easier to just die than to go back and face the pain that I caused. How did I let this happen again? My life, I would refer to it as a suicide mission. I was basically living each day not knowing if I was going to be alive or not. My family didn't know where I was. I ended up living on the streets of downtown Portland. That is where my addiction had took me. I mean, just completely a 6 to 8 block radius. We just walked the streets on it. And this was during, that time. There's still stuff happening downtown, but there was a period where downtown was just something different. I was sleeping under bridges, eating out of garbage cans, all the things that come with that lifestyle of being in an addiction in the streets, prostitution, criminal activity. My criminal record began to accumulate, just charges after charges after charges. You'll be in one area where they say, okay, you're excluded. You can't be in that area. Well, you found in that area, and if you got anything on you, not only is that trespassing, that's possession, and I'm sure I lied my name. I'm sure that's where a few of those false informations came from, so things my criminal record began to accumulate, and I had all kind of charges. Well, eventually I was set down. My life had reached a place where I was completely hopeless. I had no idea what was going on with my kids. I had been gone. I knew I was gone over that year, and I would hear little things. They had reached the place where they were doing permanent placement because I had been gone over a certain period of time, and eventually I was set down. During this time that I was out there in the community experiencing all the stuff that I already shared with you guys about prostitution, the criminal record, just that whole lifestyle, not knowing what the next day was going to bring. I want to share with you guys this billboard. This billboard used to sit up there by Broadway, by the kind of the Rose Quarter area. Well, I used to sleep underneath that bridge. And the reason I share this is because I used to come off from underneath that bridge, and this billboard would be sitting there. And back then, I really didn't understand. I just know I connected with the billboard, but it really didn't have much meaning to me during that time. I just would look at that billboard all the time when I would come off from under the bridge, and it was sitting up, a big billboard of this doctor, looking up. So I'm going to come back to that picture in a moment, and I'm going to talk to you guys about what that meant to me during that time. But at this particular time, before I actually went to jail, I just connected with that. So eventually I went to jail. The doctor asked me, or excuse me, not the doctor, the judge asked me, was there anything that I wanted to say? I had several charges. They dropped some, and they were going to sentence me on 3 charges. And he asked me if there was anything I wanted to say. And I just thought it was important for him to know that I really didn't think that I deserved to do any time. I didn't think that what I did was that bad. And so, of course, that's like the worst thing you can say to a judge. And so he said, all right, Smarty. So instead of him sentencing, so I got sentenced 6 months, 6 months, 6 months. Instead of him running them together, he ran it back to back. So I needed to do that time in county. Ended up being the best thing that could have ever happened to me. When I first got there, I went through those periods where I felt like I was losing my mind. The feeling suicidal and those type of things, because you begin to feel all that stuff you've been running from. It got to a point where I could even hear my kids saying my name. I literally thought I was losing my mind. So I went through that period when I was there. But eventually I reached a place where I started wondering, can anybody help me? Am I just going to get out of here with my tennis shoes with no shoestrings and just walk right back downtown? Can anybody help me? I started writing letters to the judge asking, is there any help available? I mean, I'm here now. I'm accepting that I'm here now, but is there any help available? I would write the judge letters. I wrote DHS services letter trying to find out exactly what's going on with my kids and have I really completely lost my rights, trying to figure all that stuff out. Well, DHS services got back to me right away, and basically they were like, whatever. Because I'm sure they get letters like that all the time from women who end up in jail or fathers that end up in jail. And, so they were like, no, not interested in even talking about it. Well, after being in jail for 7 months, I got a letter underneath my door, and it was from the judge. The judge asked me, or the judge's letter said, after carefully reading your 3 letters, that's how many I sent him, he made a decision that he wanted to help me. He was willing to not only help me, but let me out of jail right then. I would need to go to a treatment center that needed to be at least 18 months long. If I did not complete that program, I would be coming back to do all the time that I had from the very beginning. That's all I needed to hear. I was ready. I was tired. I was ready to fight for my life. Now, it took a while for them to get to me to try to help me get into a treatment center, because in jail, the counselors got to come to you, and it was taking a while, and I was like, okay, when is all this going to happen? So I got on the payphone and started calling treatment centers collect. And Project Network accepted my call, and I came to Project Network. You guys, time is moving, but we're getting ready to talk about the fight for our life. When I got to Project Network, I was ready. Anything they told me would help me become a better person, help me become a better mom, even though I knew I wasn't sure if I was going to get my kids back at that time. I was ready to fight for my life. They made a decision. They told me, Melonie, if you really want to focus on yourself, don't get in a relationship. Because that's something we struggle with too, as we're starting to get a little bit clean. We kind of want to, we've been hating ourselves for so long, and somebody says, ooh, you're cute, and we take to that. I was told, don't get in a relationship, and so I did it. Anything they told me would help me become a better person, a better woman, a better mom, I was willing to do it. I was willing to do anything that they told me. These are actual certificates from back then. Clean and healthy homes, food and nutrition. I was willing to do anything that they told me is going to help me, because what I understood is I didn't know nothing. Feeding kids ramen noodles all day? Oh, sorry, I didn't even know I went to that video. I was willing to do whatever I needed to do because I wanted to get my life back. And I understood one thing is I needed help. I took mental health trauma courses that kind of helped me understand some of this stuff that was inside of me. Some of the healing that needed to take place. By the time I got to Project Network, my self-esteem was so low, I wouldn't even look at people. I had a counselor that used to always hold my head up, and she'd say, stop looking down. I eventually started doing things that I didn't normally do. So this is a play that we did for colored girls who considered suicide when the rainbow wasn't enough. I started participating in that, which was really hard because you had to come and we would act this play out in front of people. But eventually I started getting really involved and even had one of the leading roles. And that's actually Danny Glover, who came and watched us. do this. But you know, this picture really isn't even about Danny Glover. What I want you guys to hear about this is I was healing. I was healing. The fact that I could begin to do some of these different things, it wasn't because of the things that was happening around me. It was because who I was becoming on the inside, Melonie was kind of okay standing up in front of people and talking. Melonie was kind of okay doing these little performances. I always share with people, you know, being out in the community, walking down the street, and then you hear this loud booming system coming down the street, and you might change your walk. I always wonder if people really know what I mean. Yeah, okay. By the time I started to heal inside, walking down the street, if somebody pulled up next to me and said, "What's up? Want a ride?" I felt disrespected. I felt like, really? Like, do you really think that I'm just going to jump? So the point that I'm trying to make is it isn't about the things around me changing. I was changing. Melonie started to feel like she deserved more than that. So with that, that's what I'm sharing with you when I share about that presentation. During the time that I was at Project Network, we continued to write letters to DHS services who, after so long, made a decision to reopen my case. I don't know how I forgot to say that. Open up my DHS services case for my children to possibly return to me. By the time that I graduated from Project Network, we were already working on the plan for my kids to return home with me. There was more work that needed to be done, but I was okay with that. With that, I eventually got a job. When I moved out of Project Network, I moved just down the street. And then when I finished that part, the aftercare, I moved a couple more, well, altogether I ended up living 4 blocks away from Project Network. And that's just, I felt comfortable keeping that connection. So with that, you know, I started living my life. I got my first job at a grocery store, and I had made a decision that, you know, I wasn't ready for a relationship, but there was this guy that just kept messing with me. I was working at Renaissance Market, that was off of Killingsworth. I was a grocery store clerk, and my husband would come in there, and, you know, I really wasn't ready for a relationship, you know, and I would just say, you know. And I don't remember exactly how it happened. He waited in the line, even though he could have went to another one. And I told him I was going to give him my number, but I needed to wait a little bit. Well, after time went by, I looked over there and he was still waiting. I had to give up them digits. And it was a great decision. My husband, before we ever got deep involved, he was doing couples group with me at Project Network before we ever really got involved, because I needed a man that understood that I have been through some stuff, that getting my kids back needed to be a priority. I did not want to hurt anymore. I needed someone that was willing to walk down that journey with me. During that time, my kids, they reunited my kids one at a time, which, you know, thank God DHS services knew to do that, because it was hard, you know. And then me and my husband's, you know, in a relationship. And one of the things that I have been able to look back at and think, you know, I do think my timing might not have been the best timing, just because my kids were returning and then I had met my husband. But I also think sometimes God has a plan. You know, there may be some stuff that I may have went through by myself that I may not have made it through, because my husband has helped me stay focused. I was a runner. Anytime things went bad, I'm running. Where? My husband used to say that. Where are you going? Where are you going? You know, so again, I share that there was a lot happening, and I think some of that, there were some things that, you know, I thought about in regards to my timing. But as I look at the years and seeing me and my husband just celebrated 15 years of marriage, So sometimes there's a bigger plan that we may not always understand. Just going to share a couple more pictures. Again, my husband was at a place in his life where he was making changes in his life. So me and my husband just together began to figure out what is it that we need to do to become successful and learn how to live this new life that we were trying to live. And we went through a lot of different stuff. We went through, going through churches and, just different things, just trying to find ourselves, being committed to one thing, not giving up, no matter what. Now, everything wasn't easy. I'm just going to say it. Everything wasn't easy. It was challenging. My husband had kids of his own. I had my kids. My kids returning home. My kids had been hurt. My kids got some stuff that they're experiencing that they need healing. And these kids are teenagers now. I'm just letting you know, if you got some teenagers, they're going to tell you how they feel. And it's not always going to be pretty. And there's a part of us that might sometimes accept some of the things we don't need to accept. But that's why there's a benefit of continuing to get help even during those times. Me and my husband went to teen parenting classes. It was too much. So again, I just want to make sure everybody understands everything's not pretty. Continuing to utilize community organizations to get the help that you need. I then made a decision that I wanted to go ahead and go back to school, start figuring out what I'm going to do with my life. And so with that, I became a CNA because, they were willing to let me be a CNA with some of the stuff that was on my criminal record, which I was on probation. And so I did that for a little bit, and it was the person that was over my probation who then said, "You'd make an awesome nurse." And I always wanted to be a nurse, but I kind of let that go because I had a bunch of stuff on my criminal record: felonies, possession, delivery, trespassing. And then I know when you get your kids taken away, that becomes a neglect, and that's on your record. And so I just would have never even dreamed of going down that path because I kind of knew that my criminal record was going to limit me from doing some of that. Well, she told me, just go for it, just try, fill out an application, see what they say. Well, I filled out an application and they said no, absolutely not. She told me appeal it. I was like, appeal it? I didn't even know what that meant when she first said it, but I started asking questions, got some people to help me write this letter, and I turned it in. It came back, still denied. So, I'm feeling a little bit, I'm already feeling good about just being a CNA, to be honest with you, having my kids back. Again, every day is not great, but, we were still going through some struggling times, but I was still feeling like I was in a better place than I was. So getting that appeal denied wasn't the end of the world. But she told me to appeal it again. So I appealed it a second time, came back denied a second time. She said, appeal it again. By then, I'm kind of getting a little frustrated, like, okay, she already knows they're not going to do it. She asked me, do you agree with the decision that they're making? And I said, well, no. She asked me why. Because I thought that I'd become a nurse. I'm not the same person that's on that paper. She said, well, tell them that. Talk about that. And knowing that I had the things that I needed to have to show them when they asked for it. Because one of the things that I had going for myself is my life had really changed. There was no trying to dip in there and trying to dip there. There was none of that. At the time that I started trying to turn in those applications, when they asked for stuff, did I really go through a program? Yes, I did. Did you this? Yes, I did. Did you that? Yes, I did. So after the third, they decided to approve my appeal. Had to go through a lot more than just get approved. I had to go in there, meet with a bunch of people. I was then told that if I was able to get the education that I needed to become a registered nurse, the State Board of Oregon would be willing to license me as a registered nurse. In 2007, I graduated from Motherhood Community College with my RN degree. Now, one of the things I want to share with you guys is you got to remember that, I didn't even have my GED. And I share this because I never would have imagined, that all the stuff that I had went through, that I would ever reach a place to even have the courage to try to do something like this. And one of the things that I want to tell you that really helped me do that is staying connected with community organizations. I worked with Voc Rehab that helped me address some of the issues. You know, coming back from the type of addiction that I experienced and the type of abuse, I had some disabilities that didn't need to keep me stuck, but they could hinder me moving on with my life, and they did. So the services I received at Voc Rehab helped me to address some of that. When I got in school and I was around all these younger kids, you know, doing all this stuff, I felt a little bit inadequate. You know, I wanted to give up on a daily basis. They would be on their laptops, you know, during lectures, and I'd be like, whoa, like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this, you know? So I always wanted to give up. Working with these community organizations, having other people that believed in me along with my support at home is the thing that kept me from giving up. So with that, I was able to accomplish that. Again, I was then told that I'd probably never get one of those jobs, you know, that nurses really want. I was told, you know, you probably will get the jobs that no other nurses want, but I was okay with that because I was already beating the odds. So with that, before I go in there, I just want to say one thing really quick that's really important. During the time that I was in the nursing program, I had just finished my first year. Now, there was a lot going on. I was working, I was in school, you know, the kids were teenagers, so I was going through stuff at home. I want to make sure I do not move too past this, that I don't share this very important thing with you guys. I relapsed in 2007. Alcohol was the thing, you know. Well, I really don't have a problem with alcohol. I might go down here. But you know what? Messing with alcohol, because alcohol wasn't really a big thing for me back then. But I'll tell you, it really wasn't even a big thing for me then, because the minute I started drinking, my mind began thinking about crack the whole time. So I want to share this with you guys, because this is a reality of what happened. It just seemed like out of nowhere, I'm thinking I'm good. You know, okay. You know, I'm in the nursing program. To reach a place where you have succeeded in so many different things and that door was still open. The reason why I want to make sure I don't move too fast and share this with you guys, because that could have been my life right there. That could have been it. I have no doubt in my mind that if I wasn't able to get the support of the people around me that loved me and the community organizations and the people that worked with, I'd have been right back downtown. I was able to immediately, my husband had never experienced in my life our relationship with an addiction. Long story short, I didn't really know what was getting ready to happen. I didn't know if I ruined my opportunity in the nursing program. I did not know, but I knew one thing. I knew that I needed to be still. I needed to be still. And during the time that I was there, I received the dean of the nursing program, which was the director back then, connected with me and let me know that they made a decision that they were willing to give me a leave of absence and I could return when I was done and complete the nursing program. I want to make sure that I share that with you guys because the fact that I relapsed, I wished that wasn't a part of my story. But because it was, and I was able to, utilize all the support that I had all that time and really utilize and let people help me, I was able to get my life right back on track and not have to ever look back again. I have, November made 10 years? November, because it was like November 2nd or something. But I want to make sure that I don't move past that and forget to share that with you guys because there is a possibility that everything may not be smooth sailing. But you don't have to go back. You don't have to go back. Utilize community organizations. Get the help you need. It's okay to say, I messed up. Help. Help. But a lot of times we get so deep inside that we just put ourselves in a position where we feel like we have no choice but to run. You don't have to give up. Again, I was told that I would never get one of those jobs that I'll get only the jobs that nurses don't want. I've never had to take one of those jobs. I did my clinicals at Legacy Emmanuel and trauma recovery. And these two interviewed me. They asked me, I knew they still was going to see what was on my criminal record, so I knew, but I still took a risk. When they interviewed me, they asked me, who are you? And I made a decision to tell them just who I was. A woman who had been through a lot of things, who did the hard work that needed to be done to get the help that she needed so that I was in a position to do what needed to be done on that unit as a good registered nurse, which is trauma recovery. Not only that, so that's where, and I still work there to this day. So I got that job. I'm actually a charge nurse on that unit right now. But one of the things that I want to share with you guys is shortly after getting hired at that job, I was coming out, because I had been at the hospital doing clinicals, but after being hired, I came on that unit and came around the corner and I bumped into this guy. When I came around that corner, that is when I knew that there was a plan for my life the whole time. I just had to not give up. I had to go through what I had to go through, keep fighting, and not give up. Not only did I go and just see this man, this is the trauma Legacy Emmanuel's leading trauma surgeon that's over the whole unit that I was hired on. I knew. Now, it has nothing to do with this surgeon right here. That is when I knew that there was a plan for my life the whole time. Do I think that God wanted me to experience all the pain that I experienced? No. Do I think I'm better prepared to address or make it through anything that comes my way now because of the things I went through? Yes. With that, I've been able to believe myself for more. I went back to school to OHSU and got my bachelor's degree. All the things I would have missed had I given up. Now, there's some stuff on our list that we've already missed, right? Might have missed some of your kids' years. There's some stuff that we might have already missed. But there's so much more that you can be a part of. My daughter was going to come today and she was going to share with you guys just a little bit that she shares every now and then. One of the things that she told me, because one of the things that kept me running is I couldn't get over what I did to my kids. That pain was so heavy. That was the thing that I connected with that made me feel like it would be easier to die than to go back and look them in their faces. But my daughter shared with me that the whole time, all she ever wanted was me. The whole time. And I am so grateful that I was able to give them that. And my kids aren't all doing great right now. They're not. I have some kids struggling. But one of the things that I'm committed to is when they're ready to fight for their own life, I can stand beside them and show them how to not give up. So I just want to make sure that you guys understand there's some things that we have missed. But if you woke up this morning, you still got a chance. And like I said in the very beginning, every last one of you guys are in great position. You're already in position. Because guess what? You didn't wake up loaded this morning. And you don't have to wake up loaded tomorrow morning. You're in great position. All you got to do is keep moving forward, reach out for help when you need it, and commit to not giving up no matter what. All the things I would have missed had I given up. Again, all my kids aren't doing perfectly great now. My son Marcus graduated from Park Rose. He's 28 now, but that's his graduation picture when he graduated high school. And I was there. Is there a possibility that he may not have even graduated, had his mom never returned. Or older children, getting married for the first time, having kids for the first time, being grandmas where their grandkids don't ever have to see us use. There is so much that you don't have to miss. Just other pictures of things I would have missed. My oldest son graduating. That picture right there I share because in the little blue, that's my husband's son, but me and my husband was together, and Nate's 21 now. So just missing all the things that I would have missed, being a part of his whole life. Our other daughter graduated from Benson, being a part of her life. All the things I would have missed had I given up. My grandkids, which are my life. I just had my 2 grandkids overnight, and it was amazing. The purchase of my first home. I mean, that's come a long way from under the bridge. I deserved it. We deserve it. Just more pictures of all the things I would have missed had I given up. Spending time with family, cousins, and parts of the family that I didn't even really know much about, or that I wouldn't have known much about had I made the decision to give up. This last picture, I need to update this picture because that little one in front of me is now 14. But I just wanted to have a picture in here that showed me with all my kids. Who'd have ever thought way back then that a picture like that could even exist later? Because I was told all the way from the time that I had those 4 kids before I was 18 that I was going to be a statistic. I wouldn't be nothing. They weren't going to be doing nothing. I'd probably do some of the stuff they said I was going to go through. I did. But I didn't have to be another statistic. I got the help that I needed, utilizing the community organizations and the resources available to get what I deserved the whole time. All I had to do was commit myself, reach out for help, and commit to never giving up. My name is Melonie, and I'll never give up. I mean, even to this day, stuff still comes my way. I still have stuff that that come up. Matter of fact, I can't sleep at night right now. Anxiety, I'm gonna check that out. Something ain't right. It ain't, and I know I'm overwhelmed. I got a lot of stuff going on. I know that. But I need to be able to sleep at night so that I can continue to do the day so that nothing can catch me off guard. So it's enough to say I need to look, and I'm only sharing this with you guys because life isn't just perfect. We still have some stuff to work through. But you don't ever have to go back to where you were. And there's a lot of things that you don't have to miss. All right.